What does it take for a person to risk everything? Family, friends, career, even their own life, for something unseen yet profoundly real? This question was answered by Abo of Baghdad, a man whose faith in Christ burned so brightly that not even the threat of death could extinguish it. Imagine living in a world where simply admitting your beliefs could cost you your life. Picture walking the bustling streets of medieval Baghdad, knowing that every step could be your last. Your neighbors might smile at you in public yet whisper accusations behind closed doors. The courts would not offer you a fair trial, and mercy would come only if you betrayed the very thing that gave your life meaning. Such was the reality for Abo, a man whose courage and commitment to his newfound faith made him one of history's most extraordinary martyrs. Today, we recount his incredible journey, a story of transformation, boldness, and ultimate sacrifice that has inspired countless believers across the centuries. Abo was born into a Zoroastrian family in 8th century Baghdad, the pulsating heart of the Abbasid Caliphate. The city was a marvel of its time, a cultural and intellectual hub where merchants, scholars, and theologians of various faiths gathered. Amid this vibrant diversity, however, the dominance of Islam was absolute. Any deviation from Islamic teachings was met with swift and often brutal consequences, making Baghdad a dangerous place for anyone seeking a spiritual path outside the confines of the state religion. Arbo's upbringing was shaped by Zoroastrian traditions. As a young man, he worked as a perfumer, a trade that demanded meticulous skill and an acute sense of artistry. This profession brought him into contact with a wide variety of people, including Christian merchants who would unwittingly plant the seeds of his spiritual transformation. One fateful day, Abo overheard a conversation between two Christian merchants discussing their faith. Their words struck a chord deep within him. Intrigued by their belief in a God who became man, died for humanity's sins, and rose again, Abo began asking questions. What kind of God would humble himself to suffer for his creation? How could such love exist? Despite the risks, the merchants shared the gospel with Abo, introducing him to the teachings of Jesus Christ. They spoke of a God who offered grace freely, without the need for endless rituals or sacrifices. For Abo, who had long felt the weight of religious obligations in Zoroastrianism, this message was revolutionary. It promised freedom, forgiveness, and a relationship with the divine unlike anything he had known before. Conversion to Christianity in an Islamic state was not a decision made lightly. Abo knew that leaving Zoroastrianism, and by extension, rejecting the dominant Islamic culture, would brand him as a traitor. Apostasy was not merely a personal choice. It was considered an affront to the state, punishable by death. Yet Abo could not ignore the stirring in his heart. After months of secret study and prayer, he sought out a Christian priest and was baptized. This moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, a life now devoted entirely to Christ. But Arbo's faith was not something he could hide. His passion for the gospel was too great. He began speaking openly about his beliefs, sharing the message of salvation with anyone who would listen. His zeal caught the attention of both Christians and Muslims, earning him admiration from some and hostility from others. Realizing the dangers that surrounded him, Abo decided to leave Baghdad and seek refuge in the Christian kingdom of Kartli, modern-day Georgia. Here, he hoped to deepen his faith and learn more about the teachings of the church without fear of persecution. In Kartli, Abo flourished. He immersed himself in Christian doctrine, devoting his days to prayer, study, and service. He became known for his humility and wisdom, earning the respect of the local Christian community. Yet, despite the safety he found in Kartli, Abo could not ignore the call to return to the Islamic world as a missionary. For Abo, the gospel was not something to be hidden or hoarded. It was a light meant to shine in the darkest places, even if that light cost him his life. With the blessing of the church, he began traveling back into Muslim-controlled territories, disguised as a merchant. His background and language skills allowed him to move freely, and he used these opportunities to share the message of Christ with those he met. Arbo's courage and outspokenness eventually led to his downfall. In 786 AD, while preaching in the city of Tbilisi, then under Islamic rule, he was betrayed by someone he had trusted. Arrested and brought before the authorities, Arbo was charged with apostasy from Islam and spreading Christianity, a crime considered treasonous under Islamic law. During his trial, Arbo was offered a chance to renounce his faith and save his life. The judges assured him that all would be forgiven if he returned to Islam. But Arbo's response was unwavering. "How can I deny the truth I have found?" he asked. "I was once blind, but now I see. I was lost, but now I am found. To turn away from Christ would be to return to darkness, and I will not do it." His words left the court stunned. Even his accusers could not help but admire his courage, though it did nothing to alter their verdict. Arbo was sentenced to death. In the days leading up to his execution, Arbo was placed in prison, where he spent his time in prayer and fasting. Fellow Christians who managed to visit him reported that his face shone with an unearthly peace. He spoke not of fear but of joy at the prospect of meeting Christ face to face, and joy that his suffering might serve as a testimony to others. On the morning of his execution, Arbo was led through the streets of Tbilisi to the place where he would die. A crowd gathered to watch, some jeering, others silent with awe. Arbo walked with his head held high, his lips moving in prayer. At the execution site, he was given one final chance to recant his faith. But Arbo simply smiled and said, "I am ready." He knelt, and as the executioner raised his sword, Arbo lifted his eyes to heaven and whispered, "Into your hands, O Lord, I commit my spirit." Arbo's martyrdom sent ripples through the Christian and Muslim communities alike. For Christians, his sacrifice became a rallying cry, a reminder of the power of faith in the face of persecution. For Muslims who witnessed his death, his courage and peace sparked questions about the God he served. In the years that followed, Arbo was canonized as Saint Arbo of Tbilisi, and his story was preserved by the Georgian Church. To this day, he is remembered as a symbol of unwavering faith and fearless devotion to Christ. The story of Abo of Baghdad is not just a tale of martyrdom. It is a testament to the transformative power of faith. Arbo's courage challenges us to examine our own lives. What would we do in the face of such trials? Would we stand firm, as he did, or shrink back in fear? Arbo's life and death remind us that true faith is not merely about belief but about action, about living in such a way that others cannot help but see Christ in us. His story continues to inspire believers around the world, calling us to live boldly, love deeply, and hold fast to the hope we have in Christ. So, as we remember Arbo, let us also ask ourselves, what legacy will we leave behind? How will we let our faith shine in the face of the world's darkness? Let the story of Arbo of Baghdad ignite a flame in your heart, a flame that burns with the same courage, love, and unshakable faith that led him to glory.